I don't think that it would be a negative for the party, a brokered convention. And people who start screaming that a brokered convention is the worst thing that could happen to the GOP, they have an agenda. They have their own personal or political reasons, their own candidate who they would like to see protected away from a brokered convention. So anybody who starts saying can't allow that to happen, that's part of competition, that's part of the process, and it may happen.
The words brokered convention strike joy into the hearts of the Beltway media pundits, of which I guess I am one. A brokered convention happens when no nominee has gathered enough delegates to secure the nomination, and so delegates are free to vote as they wish at the convention, often multiple times on multiple ballots before they arrive at a nominee. If you are among us politics geeks and you think brokered convention, you probably imagine 1948 and the Republicans, or 1952 and the Democrats, when Adlai Stevenson had to be convinced to join the race at the convention before he went on to win the nomination and lose to Republican Dwight Eisenhower. In those days, a brokered convention meant that party power brokers met in secrecy, presumably chewing on big cigars and speaking in Runyon-esque language, to pick the nominee. Then came 1968 with all of its tumult and rancor and chaos, when Hubert Humphrey became the nominee after a series of vitriolic speeches directed at one candidate or another at the convention by fellow Democrats. The Democratic Party emerged from their own convention battered and bruised, and Humphrey went on, of course, to lose to Richard Nixon. After that disaster played out before TV cameras, the Democrats decided that people's votes, the primary process, had to be the way their nominees were selected, that party leaders weren't going to wheel and deal behind closed doors anymore. Republicans followed suit a few years later. Since then, no cigar smoke, no wise guys in back rooms, no brokered conventions. The 1976 Republican race came close, with Ronald Reagan taking the fight against then-President Gerald Ford all the way to the convention. But then Ford squeaked by and clinched the nomination before losing to Jimmy Carter. Today, party rules have made it much harder for delegates to throw their support behind a nominee who did not win the popular vote in their district, meaning a brokered convention is a much more elusive animal. Talking Points Memo has done some great digging into how a brokered convention would actually work for the Republicans this year. First, the various candidates would have to fail to attract enough delegates to win outright because, quote, many delegates are bound by state rules to vote for a specific candidate based on their showing in a primary caucus or convention. So that has to fail first. If it did fail, if the ballot deadlocked, however, these delegates could be released from those rules if the contest drags on and on at the convention. But it actually gets more complicated than that. Plus, states have their own unique rules. For example, Alabama can unbind their delegates from the candidate who won the popular vote if two-thirds of them agree to do that. While Mississippi delegates don't have to vote for the winner of the popular vote if that candidate releases them to vote for someone else. An RNC committee member told TPM, quote, "The truth is, our rules are set up so the delegates of the convention are all independent." So, brokered convention, not impossible, but pretty improbable that Republicans could actually stage one. And then you have to ask, what would it actually accomplish? When people think about a brokered convention, they usually imagine some sort of a white knight scenario. Say Chris Christie jumps in the race, or Jeb Bush, or Dare to Dream Sarah Palin. But think about what that would mean for any of those potential saviors. Think about what they would be taking on. The existing candidates, Mitt Romney, Rick Santorum, Gingrich, Ron Paul, would fight like the devil to stop them from taking the nomination. After all, they'd been working for it. The party would be completely fractured. The American people would be watching at home, would see the GOP in an apparent state of collapse. And if a new entrant nevertheless won the nomination, the GOP convention is at the end of August. This brand new candidate would have 2 months to raise money, get organized on the ground, run ads, hire staff, learn the issues, introduce themselves to voters, get on the ground in swing states, come up with a policy platform, and unite a fractured party. 2 months to do all that while taking on the behemoth that is the Obama campaign. That's not a coronation. That's a suicide mission. Look, everyone respects Adlai Stevenson, but not many politicians, especially Republican politicians, want to actually be him.